My name is Maricel Reyes. I'm a 34-year-old nurse in Quezon City. I've seen people die. I've heard the last gasp of the elderly. I've closed the eyes of children who never made it past surgery. But I never imagined that one day I would die too. October 5th, 2023, a Thursday. Rain was falling hard across EDSA and I was just getting off my night shift at the Philippine Heart Center. My mind was exhausted. My body just wanted to sleep. I didn't know that I only had 8 minutes left to live. And I certainly didn't know that Jesus would meet me on the other side. That he would show me something so deep, so painful, and so world-shaking I still tremble when I talk about it. I died for 6 minutes and 42 seconds. I left my body. And in that time, I saw a truth that has been buried for generations. A truth about an entire people group that history tried to erase. That churches refused to preach. That media distorted. And the world continues to deny. I never expected it. Not me, a Filipina. Why would Jesus show me something about them? But he did, and I can't stay silent anymore. Because when he spoke to me, when his voice filled the heavens and his eyes locked into mine, I realized this wasn't just a message for me. It was for you, for all of us. Maricel, what the world has hidden, I am now revealing. My people have been lied to, but the awakening is near, and you must tell them. I saw visions, nations rising and falling. I saw people with dark skin, wearing royal robes, walking with grace, carrying power and divine purpose. They were not slaves. They were not broken. They were chosen. But I also saw what was done to them, how their history was rewritten, how their glory was stolen, how chains were put not just on their bodies but on their minds. The world fears their awakening, Maricel, because when they remember who they are, the enemy will tremble. I still remember the moment, the tears pouring down my face and as I stood before Jesus, as he showed me the brokenness, the lies, and the coming battle for truth. You might be wondering, why should this matter to me? I'm not black. I asked the same thing. But Jesus didn't just show me racial history. He showed me the spiritual war that is rising right now, across every color, every church, every soul who still believes in truth. This story will shake you. It shook me. It changed the way I see the world. And it lit a fire in my heart that will never die. I wasn't just dead, I was called. And if you're hearing this, maybe you are too. Let me take you back to the moment it all began. To the rain-soaked streets of Manila, to the screech of tires, to the darkness, and then to the light. I used to think my life was simple, not perfect but stable. I lived in a modest apartment on the 3rd floor of a crumbling building in Cubao, where the sound of tricycles never stopped and where neighbors still offered cape in plastic cups through their windows. I was married once, but that ended 3 years ago when my husband walked out without a word. I never blamed him. He was just tired. Tired of my 12-hour night shifts, tired of my silence after work, tired of seeing me hold other people's hands in the ICU while ours were slipping apart. But I stayed strong. I had to. For my mother who lived in Pampanga with diabetes and blurred vision. For my younger brother Joseph who still couldn't find work after college. And for my patients, the ones who whispered "Salamat Nurse, Maricel," before they closed their eyes for the last time. That was my world. Bleached hallways, IV drips, the scent of rubbing alcohol and soap that clung to my skin long after I left the hospital. That day, October 5th, had started like any other. The shift was brutal. 2 emergency surgeries, 1 code blue, and a shouting match between a grieving husband and a sleepy intern. By the time my shift ended at 6:15 a.m., my feet were swollen and my shoulders ached so badly I could barely carry my backpack. But there was something strange about that morning, a stillness, a pressure in the air, Even the janitor, who usually whistled a tune, was unusually quiet. I remember looking up at the overcast sky as I stepped outside the hospital gate thinking, is a storm coming? Little did I know, the real storm was inside my own timeline, counting down second by second. I walked to the parking lot, fumbling with my keys, yawning. My old Vio started with its usual cough. The radio crackled with some morning gospel music from 702 Jesus, and I began driving right turn on East Avenue, merging onto EDSA northbound. Home was just 18 minutes away. Rain began to fall light at first, then heavier, then so thick the world outside turned into smears of headlights and brake lights. I turned on the wipers. I lowered the radio. My fingers gripped the steering wheel just a little tighter, but I wasn't afraid. I was too tired to be. I passed the Kamuning flyover and I was less than 5 minutes from home. That's when I saw it. 2 blinding headlights, a speeding SUV swerving out of control, coming straight at me in the wrong lane. I had no time to react. I slammed on the brakes. I screamed. I braced. Crash! The sound of metal shattering. The windshield exploding like glass confetti. My body thrown forward even with the seatbelt. The smell of smoke, the spinning, the silence. Time didn't slow down like in the movies. It stopped. I remember the smell of rain. I remember the taste of blood in my mouth. And then, nothing. No pain, no fear, just a quiet so deep I thought I had fallen asleep. But I wasn't sleeping. I was dying. They told me later that the impact crushed the left side of my car. The SUV was driven by a drunk 19-year-old boy who'd stolen his father's keys after a party in Ortigas. He walked away with a scratch. I, on the other hand, had no heartbeat for 6 minutes and 42 seconds. They tried to resuscitate me right there in the rain. Paramedics shouting, defibrillators charging. But I wasn't there anymore. I was already above, watching, listening, floating. And that's when the light came, not from the ambulance, not from the street lamps, from somewhere higher. A warmth surrounded me, pulling me gently upward. I felt no pain, no confusion, only a deep soul-level knowing I had crossed over, and someone was waiting for me. The moment my soul left my body was the moment I felt more alive than I ever had before. There was no weight, no pain, no noise, no gravity. I was floating, but not through air, through something softer, thicker, as if love itself had formed a current lifting me gently through layers of light. I looked down. I saw my car crumpled like paper, paramedics frantically working. A woman crying was that the other driver's mother. Everything was in motion, but I was still. I wasn't scared. I should have been. But all I felt was peace, not the kind you get from a quiet morning, but a sacred peace. The kind that makes you weep for reasons you can't explain. And then it happened. A light. Not white, not yellow, but living. It pulsed with presence like it was breathing. It didn't blind me, it invited me. It knew my name before I spoke it. Then I heard the voice, not loud, not booming, but clear, like it was coming from inside the marrow of my bones. Maricel, do not be afraid. The moment I heard him, I collapsed. Not from fear, but from the sheer holiness of it. Like every cell in me knew I was in the presence of someone who held stars between his fingers, yet still knew how many strands of hair I had lost from stress last week. I looked up and there he was, not the Jesus from the paintings, not the gentle man with blue eyes and golden hair, but the real Jesus, brown-skinned, eyes like deep rivers, wounds still in his hands but glowing with resurrection. He stood not like a celebrity, but like a father who had been waiting a long, long time. And I couldn't stop trembling. Everything in me broke open. You are not here by accident. There is something I must show you. He reached out his hand. I hesitated, not because I didn't trust him, but because I didn't feel worthy to touch someone so pure. But he smiled a smile that melted every defense I'd ever built. I took his hand, and the moment our fingers touched, a current of pure life shot through me. All my pain, my disappointments, my shame, they dissolved like morning mist under sunlight. And then we were moving. Not walking, not flying, just being carried across realms I had no words for. Colors I'd never seen. Sounds that felt like music and memory combined. I saw a garden so vast, so vibrant, it made Eden feel like a backyard. I saw rivers that didn't just reflect light, they sang it. And then we stopped. Jesus turned to me, his face now solemn. The atmosphere shifted like the air itself was holding its breath. Before you return, you must see what has been hidden. A truth the world has buried. A people the world has wounded, but I have not forgotten. Suddenly, we were standing in a city I didn't recognize, yet my soul knew it. Golden structures, skies layered with shimmering patterns, people walking tall, regal, glowing. They were black, beautiful, dignified, wearing garments like kings and queens woven with wisdom, not thread. Jesus looked at them not with pity, not even with pride, but with a kind of sacred longing. These are my chosen ones. But the world rewrote their story. His words dropped into my spirit like thunder. They were not born slaves. They were not born broken. They were born to lead, to heal, to carry my voice across generations. I watched breathless as history unraveled before me. Ancient scrolls, star maps, temples built with knowledge lost to the world. Then chains, whips, ships, silenced mouths, eyes turned downward. The enemy feared their power, so he erased their memory. But I never forgot. I was weeping. I didn't even know why I was crying so deeply. I wasn't black. But in that moment, I felt their pain, their stolen identity, their stolen divinity. Jesus turned to me again. His eyes fierce like a flame yet filled with mercy. Tell them, Maricel. Tell them the time of awakening has come. Tell them they are not forgotten. Tell them I am raising them up, not in anger, but in power. Not in violence, but in truth. I could barely breathe. I had died in a car accident. But here I was, witness to a message that had been hidden for centuries. Not a dream, not a fantasy, a divine revelation. And I knew what came next would shake everything I ever thought I understood. The golden city vanished in a blink. In its place rose a stormy sky brooding with sorrow. Maricel found herself standing in a dim realm, not of fire and punishment, but of deception. Around her were screens, giant glowing, floating mid-air. They displayed scenes that made her breath hitch. One screen showed a young Filipino boy in Tondo being mocked at school, told he would never be anything. Another flashed images of a teenage girl in Mindanao, bleaching her skin, crying in silence as social media praised foreign beauty standards. Another played endless reels of TV shows and influencers, subtly reinforcing that Filipino equals less. Tears welled in Maricel's eyes. This is the war not seen with bullets and blood, but with lies and illusions. He pointed at a screen showing a church in Manila. Inside, pastors were preaching comfort, not repentance. They told the congregation to smile, to forgive, but never acknowledged their oppression, their pain. Their voices were calm, but their spirits were asleep. Many churches have become quiet when they should roar with truth. They fear offending, so they do not defend. They desire crowds, so they abandon the cross. The next screen chilled her. It showed a generation of Filipino youth scrolling, consuming, numbing. Videos of dancing, wealth, sensuality. Every swipe pushed them further from spiritual hunger. Instead of worship, they worshipped trends. Instead of seeking God, they sought validation. Maricel stepped closer. A little girl appeared, maybe 8 or 9, clutching her rosary. She was praying under a broken tin roof as the rain poured, whispering, "Jesus, please let my papa come home. Please don't let him leave us for that other woman." Maricel covered her mouth, sobbing. The wounds are deep in the Filipino soul. Family-torn identity, diluted faith, compromise. But still some children pray. She looked up at him. Why, Lord, why are we so lost? He walked slowly toward a screen showing a slum in Pasay. A boy with no slippers handed his last piece of pandesal to a stray dog. No one saw him, no camera, no applause. Because the enemy fears what I planted in your people: compassion, resilience, a light that refuses to be snuffed out even in poverty. Suddenly, the screens shattered. Shards flew in all directions, revealing a battlefield of souls. There were chains not of iron but of belief. Some were labeled not good enough, too dark, too poor, too broken, not worthy. They bound children, mothers, teenagers, professionals, even priests. These lies have been spoken for generations, and so they became truths in the minds of many. But we just accept them. Maricel whispered. Yes, because no one told you the truth of who you are. Not fully, not spiritually. Jesus waved his hand and the vision changed. She saw tribes of old, the ancestors, wearing intricate woven garments, standing proud. Their faith was strong, their wisdom unmatched. They did not bow to colonizers or compromise their soul. Before the sword came, before the idols arrived, your people knew me. I walked with them. I whispered to them through mountains, rivers, and songs. Maricel clutched her chest, trembling. You are not forgotten. You are not lesser. Your story was hijacked, your strength hidden, but I am restoring it. She looked up and saw a different kind of Filipino. Teenagers laying hands on each other in prayer. Fathers returning to their families, repenting. Mothers casting out idols and raising up altars. Whole barangays gathering not for festivals but for worship. No lights, no stage, just unity, hunger, truth. The awakening is beginning, but it comes with shaking. A mighty earthquake struck the vision. Buildings collapsed, not physical but ideological. Maricel saw media channels crumble, fake doctrines fall apart, prideful voices silenced. Only those rooted in truth remained standing. I will shake what can be shaken so that what cannot be shaken will remain. Maricel turned to him afraid. What if they don't listen? What if we're too late? It is never too late to turn, but every moment delayed is a soul at risk. The final scene showed a boy about 12 standing on a street corner in Cebu, preaching the gospel aloud with a tattered Bible in hand. Some laughed, some mocked, but a woman suicidal stopped. She listened, she lived. The small will become mighty, the hidden will become light. My spirit is not confined to buildings or titles. I use the willing. Maricel's knees buckled. Her heart broke wide open. She now saw the Philippines not just as a nation, but as a battlefield of heaven and hell, of truth and deception, of awakening and slumber. Maricel, what you do with what I show you will decide how many awaken with you. She wept, and in that moment something in her died and something eternal awakened. I stood still, trembling, unsure if my soul could bear any more. My heart ached from everything I had seen, the erased history, the stolen identity, the spiritual deception that ran deeper than any chains. I looked at Jesus who stood by my side, his face filled with both compassion and holy authority. Maria, you have seen what few are permitted to see. This truth has been buried, twisted, and ridiculed. But the time is now. The truth must arise again. My people must remember who they are, not by the world's feast definition, but by mine. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Only tears. My spirit was overwhelmed. I felt unworthy, too small for what he was revealing. You are not chosen because you are strong. You are chosen because you said yes in your heart. You carry no sword, but your voice will shake the lies. You will speak, and those with ears to hear will awaken. Suddenly we stood before a wide plain filled with people from every tribe and nation. Their eyes closed, their hearts burdened with unseen chains. Some were distracted by noise, others consumed by shame, some even worshiping without knowing truth. Then Jesus lifted his hand. A great wind moved across the crowd. One by one, people began to open their eyes, first in confusion, then in realization. A few fell to their knees in repentance. Others wept, holding their hands to their chest as if something long forgotten had returned. The awakening has begun, Maria, but it will not be easy. The enemy will fight harder. He will twist truth, even using my name to divide and mislead. But those who remain in me will endure, and through their endurance, others will find the light. I saw the Philippine flag fluttering in the distance, but it was faded like a memory. Around it stood children, women, elders, and young men, all with golden light beginning to emerge from their chests. Jesus placed his hand over my eyes again, and I was shown visions of my own homeland, my people, my barangay, our broken families, our addiction to technology, the silence of our churches. I saw pastors preaching prosperity while ignoring poverty. I saw families divided not by physical distance, but by spiritual apathy. I saw young people chasing trends, not truth. You will return and speak to them, Maria. Tell them that I am not far, that I never left. I am standing outside the door of many hearts, knocking, waiting. But time is running short, and what is coming will test every heart. The tone of his voice shifted. There was a holy urgency. Warn them the deception will not always look like evil. It will wear beauty. It will speak with kindness. It will preach unity but without repentance. It will offer comfort but take away truth. Many will fall thinking they are rising. I felt a fire stir in my soul. For the first time since the accident, I felt a purpose greater than anything I had known. Not the nurse's uniform, not the clinic, not the routine life I had once called normal. I had been marked, set apart, not better, not more holy, but awakened. Tell the mothers to pray again. Tell the fathers to return to their posts. Tell the youth that their identity is not on a screen but in my hands. Tell the churches that I am cleansing my temple. Those who worship in spirit and in truth, I will dwell among them. Suddenly, I was back on that golden path beside him. The bright light from earlier was returning, but this time it was not pulling me upward. It was gently pressing me backward. I looked at him with desperation. Lord, must I go? I want to stay here. I want to be with you. He smiled, not with sadness, but with mission. You must go back, Maria. Not all will believe you. Some will laugh. Others will remain asleep. But you are not going for them. You go for the ones who are ready, for the hearts that are searching. Speak boldly. Love deeply. Fear nothing. I am with you. I began to sob again, not from fear but from love so overwhelming it shook my very soul. He drew closer. Your time has not yet come to stay, but your time to shine has arrived. The message is not yours, it is mine. Carry it, speak it, and never be ashamed of me. And then with a voice as soft as a whisper, but louder than thunder, he said, Go, the harvest is ready. The workers are few. Be my voice. In an instant, I felt my body being pulled fast hard, like a current rushing against gravity. And then everything went dark. The days after I came back from death were not like before. I didn't wake up and simply return to my old life. No, it was as if everything familiar had become foreign. The world I once lived in, filled with noise, pressure, and empty routines, now felt like a distant memory, a dream I could no longer fit into. Even my own reflection in the mirror startled me. Something in my eyes had changed. There was a depth now, a weight, a fire that hadn't been there before. I wasn't the same Maria Santos anymore. I had seen heaven. I had walked with the King of Glory. How could I go back to small talk and scrolling through meaningless feeds? My first instinct was silence. I stopped speaking unless it was necessary. I would sit by the window for hours just listening to the wind, the birds, the stirring of the spirit within me. My mother thought I was still in shock. The doctors called it post-trauma behavior. But I knew the truth. I was still hearing him. Maria, you cannot carry heaven's fire and hide it under a blanket of fear. Let it burn. Let it spread. So I began to write. I filled notebooks with what I saw. The visions, the cities, the glowing people, the false peace, the stolen truth. I wrote down his every word that I could remember. Then I started speaking in small church gatherings. At first, they were skeptical. "What do you mean you saw Jesus? You think you're a prophet now?" Some whispered behind my back. Others rolled their eyes. But a few, oh just a few, their hearts broke open. They wept as I spoke. They nodded. They had felt it too, this unrest, this invisible call to wake up. One woman grabbed my hand and said I thought I was going crazy. But now I know Jesus really is warning us. It was in that moment I realized this wasn't about me. It never was. I started praying like I never had before. Not just the bless me kind of prayers, but dangerous prayers. Break me if you must, Lord. Shake me, use me. I began fasting not for a miracle, but to align my spirit with His voice. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still see the ancient city of light. I could still hear the chains shattering from the people Jesus called His own. I could still feel the weight of that final warning. The world will try to numb them, but I will awaken those who still have ears to hear. I couldn't walk into a mall without seeing it, people numbing their pain with distractions. I couldn't scroll social media without feeling the spiritual deception behind every trend, every filter, every lie wrapped in glitter. And slowly I began to change my daily habits. I deleted accounts that glorified vanity. I stopped watching shows that blurred the lines of truth. I distanced myself from voices, even Christian ones, that spoke more hype than holiness. My spirit had been rewired. One night I couldn't sleep. The presence of God was so thick in my room, I fell to my knees again. Maria revival will not begin in churches filled with fog machines and catchy slogans. It will begin in bedrooms, in whispers, in broken hearts that still tremble before me. And I broke again. I knew then I had to start at home. I prayed with my family. I opened my Bible not for Instagram pictures but for soul surgery. The scriptures lit up like fire. Verses I'd read 1,000 times before suddenly pierced me. The first shall be last. Be not conformed to this world. Many are called, but few are chosen. I understood them now. I understood that the greatest threat to our generation is not violence or poverty, but comfort without conviction, prosperity without purpose, religion without relationship. People began asking me, "Maria, why are you different now?" And I told them the truth. Because I died. Because I saw the other side. Because Jesus told me that the enemy no longer uses just war or hate. He uses entertainment, comfort, convenience, and pride. Maria, tell them the world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more intercessors. So I became one. I began waking up early just to pray for my city, for the youth, for the churches, for the lost, for the deceived. I started mentoring young girls, many of them addicted to their phones, lost in comparison, anxiety, and secret depression. I didn't preach religion to them. I told them what Jesus showed me. And one by one, they began to wake up. This is what it means to truly come back from death. Not just to breathe again, but to live differently, to love differently, to speak with fire, to walk with holy urgency. I don't fear death anymore. I've already seen where I'm going. What I fear now is silence. Silence in the face of deception. Silence when Jesus is calling His people to rise. You were brought back for such a time as this. Do not be lukewarm. Do not be silent. I am coming soon, and I will not waste this breath I've been given. I am Maria Santos. I died, but now I live for Him. I don't know how much time we have left, but every time I close my eyes, I feel the urgency pressing on my chest, like a clock ticking in heaven, getting louder each day. What I saw wasn't just a vision. It was a divine alarm. This world, the one we're scrolling through, chasing success and numbing ourselves within, is under a great deception. And I say this not to scare you, but to wake you. Because I was there. I saw the enemy's final play. I saw how he would use comfort to lull us to sleep. How he would convince believers that all is well, even as spiritual rot spreads through our churches, our schools, our homes. And then I heard Jesus say again, "Maria, the greatest war is not for land or politics. It is for the soul." Let that sink in. Not your job, not your followers, not your opinions. Your soul. That's the real battlefield. And we are all standing on the edge of eternity. If you're still here, still breathing, you've been given mercy. Not to waste, not to play with, not to trade for likes or applause, but to return, to repent, to rise. I don't care what your background is, how many times you failed, how many doubts you have. None of it disqualifies you from what God is doing now. Tell them, Maria, those who feel forgotten are the very ones I am calling by name. So if your heart is heavy, if your soul feels dry, if you've been walking through life on autopilot, this is your moment. Don't ignore it, because I almost did. I almost died never knowing the truth. This generation is walking straight into a storm. And many are doing it with headphones in eyes down and souls unguarded. Jesus showed me how the enemy isn't coming with fangs and fire. He's coming with hashtags, entertainment, false unity, twisted truth. And he's targeting the youth, the churches, the families, the broken. If they do not wake up now, they may never wake again. I trembled when I heard him say that. And maybe you feel the trembling too, that feeling deep in your spirit, that something is wrong, that something is coming. You're not crazy, you're being called. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly sought Jesus? Not just attended a service, not just reposted a verse, but actually wept before him, surrendered everything, and asked, Lord, what do you want from me? Because that's what he's looking for now. Not perfect people, but hungry ones, sincere ones, broken ones who say, here I am, Lord, use me. And if that's you, then this isn't just my testimony. It's your call to arms. The night before I shared this publicly, I felt fear like a wave crashing over me. What if they laugh at me? What if they don't believe? What if I lose everything? And Jesus whispered, Maria, do not fear man's rejection. Fear heaven's silence. That changed everything. So now I speak. I cry out. I beg you, wake up. Fall in love with Jesus again. Return to the Word. Turn off the noise. Ask the Holy Spirit to open your eyes. Live like eternity is real, because it is. Heaven is real. Hell is real. And Jesus is coming not for a sleeping bride, but a burning one. So light the fire. Share the truth. Get uncomfortable. Speak boldly. Stand firm. Because when the deception rises, only truth will remain. I am not coming for the loudest, but for the loyal. I am Maria Santos. I died once and came back for this moment. Now it's your turn to rise. If this testimony stirred something in you, don't scroll away. Share it. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe for more powerful faith stories like this. Let's build a community of voices that won't be silenced. The awakening is here. Will you be part of it? Subscribe now to Pinoy Faith Stories and be a light in this generation.